Lisa.
And I'm Suzy, and this is the Coaching Cast. We are the No Nonsense podcast, chatting about the things impacting you at work right now, helping you to survive and thrive in today's workplace.
We discuss different topics in each episode, sharing our ideas, hints, and top tips from our experiences of working in the corporate world, running our own businesses, and also being qualified coaches. We also try to have a few laughs along the way too, because taking yourself too seriously is just boring. We really hope you enjoy listening. In today's episode, we're talking about self-doubt. You know, that little voice that says you're not good enough or you can't do this. Because let's be real, this thought creeps in for so many of us, and yes, that includes the most successful people we know as well. We discuss this topic and share some practical tips on how you can take back your power when self-doubt comes calling. So, stay with us and enjoy. So, before we get into this very relevant topic, relevant for all of us, I think, me included, so I'm looking forward to this, Suzy. Let me check in with you. How have you been?
So yeah, I've been good, thank you. I'm just coming off the back of Easter and the Easter school holiday, so I feel like I'm kind of here in person. But I might need to kind of warm up the old brain through this episode. So apologies in advance if that is the case. But yes, it's been quite a kind of lovely but intense couple of weeks doing the juggle of school holidays. This is my first year of being in kind of that school, kind of yearly time frame. And it goes, do you know what? It goes really fast. Like when my son goes back to school tomorrow, we're then on the summer term. And in 4 weeks' time is the next school holiday at the end of May. And then they've got like 6 weeks left, and then that's it. We're into the big one, the big old summer holiday, which I'm trying not to think about yet. So it goes really, really quick. So that everyone says that, but it's really true.
So that will be Arthur's first year at school done.
Yeah.
God, that has gone really quick.
Yeah. So you kind of get into like a yearly cycle, I think, and then because it's like the same every year, it just feels really, really, really super quick. So yeah, I feel like it's been a good month or so since I saw you last. Bit of sunshine, a few Easter eggs. Some kind of Easter egg treasure hunts, bit of a few days out, that type of stuff, some work thrown in for good measure. Nothing massive has happened, and do you know what, I'll take that.
You're like, that's fine for me, Well,
how about you? What have you been up to?
Well, so I had a story to share about a recent yoga weekend I went on. Do you remember I think I told you I was going on this yoga weekend?
Yes, and I saw this on your Instagram as well.
Yeah. I thought it'd be a nice thing to do for myself.
Yeah.
A bit of me time. So I booked on Carrie's yoga retreat, which was hosted just outside of Cape Town. So it was like a really lovely like weekend away. And we stayed in this local farm. It was an olive farm. In self-catering accommodation, which was fab. And we did yoga every day and we dined together. Carrie's partner is an incredible chef, so he was cooking wonderful meals. We did some walks. It was so nice. And actually, I did love being in nature, which I do generally, but I think I am definitely one of those. I love being in nature as long as nature never comes too close to me. I think I'm one of those. And originally I was supposed to be camping in a tent,
right?
Because that's what I'd opted for. I like this whole idea of like really embracing the outdoors without really thinking through what that meant and whether it really suited me all that well. And anyway, I ended up not staying in a tent. I stayed in actual, four-walled accommodation. And on our last night, I walked into my room and there was this large scorpion on the wall. And
days.
It was massive. Now, I'd already been attacked the night before by a huge spider. And over the course of this weekend, the whole of our self-catering accommodation was being um, overwhelmed by these tiny, tiny millipedes. They are so small, they're harmless. But there was like hundreds and hundreds of these things, these millipedes. They were all over the floors, they were all up the walls, they were in the shower, they were in the toilet, like they were all over the place. I'd kind of got used to them being around. They were annoying, but I got used to them. But yeah, first night, a huge spider.
Oh my
Second night
goodness.
was a large scorpion on the wall. And I was literally like, seriously, like, give me a break. Now, thankfully, I did recall what Dom, my husband, had told me about scorpions, which is the larger the
Yeah.
pincers, the least dangerous that they are. So the scorpions you want to worry about are the very small scorpions that have small pincers but big tails. They're the dangerous ones.
Okay.
The size of the scorpion, if it's large with big pincers, little tail, it will sting, it will hurt if it gets you, but it won't hurt you more than that. It's not poisonous. Still, this thing was black with like a blue shine. It was quite beautiful actually, but I still didn't want to sleep with it. So I'd like to say I did the real strong womanly thing and removed it myself, but obviously I didn't. I screamed and got a bloke to come with a broom and he swept it out. But that definitely was an experience. I've slept out in bush camps across South Africa a few times now. Never encountered a scorpion before, so that was a first. And it definitely made me think, why on earth did I believe that sleeping in a tent would have been good for me? Because I can't handle that kind of nature. I like looking at it. I don't want it sleeping with me particularly. So yeah, and you know, right. So this scorpion, we swept it out and
Yeah.
it really didn't want to move. And I said to the guys, I was like, have you swept it further enough away from my door so it won't come back? And they were like, yeah, it won't come back. Now it's been attacked. It will know not to come back. I was like, okay. And I rolled up a load of towels and put them underneath my door so nothing could crawl under it because I was convinced it was going to
Oh,
come
good
back.
idea. Yeah.
Next morning, I opened the door at like 6:45, like sunrise, to go and get a coffee. And this scorpion was sat on my doormat. And I was like, he did come back. Lies and slander. He came back. So then I was like trying to shoo him. I was like, bugger off. So yeah, hey, look, that, it wasn't a
Oh,
lion. It wasn't a lion, but I definitely feel like I'm living in Africa now.
well, I feel like you were living in an episode of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, to be
Well, true. But I
honest.
mean, like, hey, look, they didn't make me eat it.
True.
We
True.
didn't do like fried scorpion on the braai for breakfast or anything weird. But yeah, so that's a new one for me. Never encountered a scorpion
Oh,
before.
fair play.
Um
I'd be off. I wouldn't be very good at that at all.
I'll share pictures, peeps, for anyone listening if you're interested. I've got some cracking photos of this scorpion. I will put it on stories at some point on Instagram and you can witness what I experienced. I've already posted it on LinkedIn, so anyone who follows me on LinkedIn, you will have seen this because I think I came off that weekend going, look at the new friends I've been making. So
It
yeah.
was a strong content week that week.
Well, that exactly, yeah, quite good shout. I think you can tell you're I always think you can tell when people are desperate on LinkedIn when they start sharing the personal stuff because they can't come up with anything of anything else, and that was definitely true for me. I was like, I can't be asked today. What can I share? Oh, I know. And typically, I think it's probably the post that's got the most engagement.
Yeah, it always is.
Nothing
Always
to do with
is.
my like personal ideas or thoughts or
Yeah.
expertise or things I'm offering as advice. No,
Oh,
the picture of the scorpion got the most attention.
always is. I posted something at the end of last year about a story or an experience, a very unfortunate experience I had in a bar in Manchester. Um, and
Have I missed this? Did I see it?
I don't know, maybe. And then I had a similar experience the day after at a kid's party. I won't go into it 'cause it's like really long-winded. But anyway, that post got like 25,000 views.
Oh
And
my God.
it was like an experience that was not particularly pleasant for me, like in it. But I'd posted about it because there was like some learnings in there about self-confidence, actually, which kind of links to what we're talking about
It
today.
does. You're always very good with the tenuous links.
Yeah, always. And but when I actually like post about like self-confidence and here are like my top tips, having, you know,
Yeah, no one cares, do they?
studied this subject for a number of years now and really refined my, advice and suggestions with my coaching clients, about 10 people look at it and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I know.
oh,
I know.
okay. It's the Manchester Bar comment posts clearly that I need to really hone in on.
Yeah, I can relate to this strongly. For anyone out there listening who's like, they're probably, most of our listeners are probably like, can't even believe you go on LinkedIn. Like, who goes on LinkedIn? Bore off. I do think it's definitely one of those platforms where I'm like, people go on LinkedIn when they're either looking for a new job or when they have a new job and they want to boast and tell everyone about it, or actually, that is probably the only reason people go, or if they've got their own business like you and I do. I think most of the people I interact with on LinkedIn are people who've got this, have got a business of themselves. We all just congregate there and chat to each other. Um, it's a weird place. It can be very dry, very dry.
Yes, yes.
I think some of my favorite posts are the ones when you talk about personal stuff. I know you've just alluded to the fact you did it there with the trip to Manchester in the bar, but it's the people who make their life events into work learnings. Like, that's the funniest. Like, the guy who got married wanted to celebrate getting married, but actually spent the whole post with a photo of him and his wife getting married, talking about learnings for him as a leader in a business. Bore off, mate. Bore off. Why don't you just enjoy the fact you got married and talk about the fact you married the love of your life? Why do you turn it into a leadership thought piece? What a douche. What a douche. So, like, yeah, it's that kind of thing that I'm like, I go on because it's funny, but at the end of the day, look, no. Don't worry, everyone. The scorpion didn't feature with my thoughts about leadership. It was just literally like, hey, look at my new mate I just made out in the bush. And that was it. So, like, yeah,
This is a scorpion, end of.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Anyway,
fair
right.
enough. Oh, you've really tickled me there. That's made me laugh a lot.
Look out for them.
Right, I feel like we should definitely move on,
Yeah,
as
we
we
should.
always do when we conclude these parts of the podcast.
And whoever you are, if you're listening, you know who you are when you did that. Just celebrate getting married, knob. Self-doubt is something we all experience, especially when we're stretching ourselves, stepping up, or doing something new. That little voice that says, you're not good enough, is so common for us all. So, today, let's go a bit deeper into where this feeling comes from, because understanding it helps you take its power away. One of the biggest roots of this feeling is early conditioning. Many of us were praised for results, not effort, when growing up. So we start tying our self worth to achievement. If we're not smashing it, we cannot feel valuable. Then you layer on when we get into the workplace, where success is often measured by outcomes, targets, deadlines, KPIs, and not necessarily how hard we tried or how much we grew. That reinforces the message of achievement. And let's not forget impostering thoughts as well. That classic feeling of being a fraud, like you've somehow tricked people into thinking you're capable, and it's only a matter of time before you're found out, in inverted commas. As well as systemic and cultural layers, self doubt is complex. And I would say a natural reaction to challenging systems, high expectations, and deep rooted beliefs that we've often carried for years. So, in other words, there's a lot here, people, and we're going to try and unpack some of that today. So, Suze, can you think of a time then in your career when self doubt showed up for you? What did it look like, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, like last week.
I was going to say yesterday, but Thursday before the Easter weekend. Yeah, every day.
Um, so I think there's something in that, in
Yeah.
the sense that, um, you know, you are often not immune to this, regardless of, what you do. Because, some people, and they've said this to me before, and maybe said this to you, because of the line of work that we do, like we are coaches, we've left our corporate careers, we've set up our own businesses, we record a podcast, we put it out to the world, and then you might talk to somebody about like, oh yeah, no, I have, self-doubt, I have wobbles where I don't think I'm enough or I'm good enough. And people go, really? And you go,
Mm,
yeah. I wouldn't have thought that of you. And you think,
mm,
why? Like I like why? And that's my point is we all can experience this regardless of
mm,
where you're at, either in your career or in your life, or what position you're in work. Um, because it's complex, as you said there in the intro, it's often multi-layered, it's often historical. A lot of this is created through our early childhood experiences. And I would say this is one of the most popular subjects that I deal with in my coaching work.
mm,
Um, and that is, well, as a coach, firstly, that's exciting. I love doing stuff like this, because you can really, really help somebody move forward in how they view themselves and the tools and things they've got to kind of deal when they're in this place of
Mm,
doubting themselves. But to go back to your question, yes, I last experienced this, yeah, probably about 10 days ago. Um, I'd say that was a cut, that was probably like a day, like a short burst of self-doubt. And then the next day it kind of I'd moved through it and kind of, yeah, it wasn't lingering. But I'd say my last period of where that self-doubt really lingered was the end of last year, beginning of this year. That probably went on for probably a bit too long amount of time. Um, and that was a combination of low energy, like
mm,
feeling like a bit knackered. It was end of the year. It was dark, like weather-wise. I always find that influences kind of how I feel about myself as
mm,
well. Um, and work was okay. It was a bit challenging. There were some other bits and bobs go. I got myself into a bit of a cycle of kind of like doubting myself on a pretty daily basis, I'd
mm,
say.
mm,
Um, but I think in my corporate career, when I reflected on this question, I think I can also remember having a period where I'd just been promoted into my kind of like final senior leadership role in the organization that I was working in. And I definitely went through that, what is now quite a normalized period of where you doubt yourself because you've got a bigger job with bigger responsibilities, bigger KPIs to deliver, bigger
mm,
achievement. Again, like you alluded
mm,
to in the intro there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. This feels overwhelming. This feels too much. Who am I to be able to deliver this? Like, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And I definitely remember being in quite a, yeah, kind of mid-term cycle of self-doubt. And I
mm,
had to kind of teach myself and show myself that I could do it through those little wins in order to move
mm,
myself through. But
mm,
I think having your own business, so, anyone who's got their own business who listens to this, may experience like I have done, my self-doubt probably crops up more often and more
mm,
frequently. But
mm,
in some ways, I feel better equipped on the whole to kind of deal with it, acknowledge it. First off, acknowledge it, then kind of make sense of it, and then that way deal with it, and then move through it. And,
mm,
and often it's normally telling me something which
mm.
I don't know in the moment, but
Yeah, yeah.
afterwards I kind of get it and figure out what that is. But yeah, I mean, I think, I've said quite a lot there, but I think the main takeout really is that this is very, very common, regardless of seniority, of, role, self-employed, employed. Pretty much everyone I speak to has had a period or a bout of self-doubt at some point.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's that this is so common. And actually, I think what you're describing there is how I would view it. And I think it's an important thing to say, which is it's so transient as well.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily a permanent feeling. I think there's some of us who really struggle with it permanently,
Yeah.
but I think that's because my assumption is for those individuals who feel it acutely on a permanent basis, it's not being addressed, it's not being worked on, it's not being explored. I think I would describe my experiences of self-doubt, which are also similar to yours in that they are actually very common, um, and have become more common and more frequent since I started my own business over the last 3 years. Um, I think because I'm so aware of it and I'm much more skilled and knowledgeable in self-belief and confidence, self-worth, all of it, I know how to work through it and to acknowledge that it is a it's just another state that I'm living in at any given time, and I can move through it, that it's not permanent, it's not here to stay, it's not it's not immovable. I think we've talked about confidence and they are intrinsically linked, I think. I think your self-belief is what feeds into your confidence. So this is the foundational element of it, or one of the foundations, I think, of confidence. And I think being able to face into it and unpick it is part of how to work through it. And to recognize that it's not what it's telling you is not true a lot of the time. It's very
Yeah,
rare that it ever is telling you the truth. It's telling you certain things that link to your belief system that you have established over many years, like you've described. A lot of this is rooted in your childhood experiences, your early years, but it's actually heavily connected, I think, to every experience you've ever had, and that includes work as
absolutely.
that includes work as well, which in many cases, if you've allowed it to, will just reinforce some of that early year stuff. It's like self-fulfilling, this stuff. But it's very rarely telling you the whole truth. It's telling you something that is true, but it's often distorting it.
Yeah,
And a big part, I think, of working through periods of self-doubt is finding out the truth, getting the facts, gathering your data, and supporting yourself to really ensure that you fully understand what's going on, to then be able to decide, well, what's true for me? What's the right thing to do next? How do I move through this? And I think that's a big part of actually also developing and growing your self-belief in a more positive way, is that recognition that actually I can work through hard things, I can move through difficult times, I can process hard feelings, I can. And that's all part of building your self-belief and your resilience, because it's reinforcing that I can rather than
yeah,
staying in the I can't space.
yeah,
Because I think if you give in to the self-doubt, then you're just reinforcing that self-doubt is true. It's just saying,
yeah,
well, that I was telling you can't, I was right, because you're not
yeah,
doing anything different, you're not
yeah,
challenging it,
exactly.
you're just staying there.
And also, I think it's quite, even the word doubt, well, for me anyway, that word in itself, like it feels quite grey, quite messy, like it feels it gives me like an uncomfortable feeling, even just saying that word, like
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I find when I'm in that place, like if I'm having a day where my self-doubt is high, I I know that part of the right way for me of managing and dealing with it is to sit in it for a bit.
yeah,
Like it is not just to try and move through it really, really quickly, like transactionally,
yeah.
because this is a feeling that's come from
Mm,
somewhere and
mm,
has been curated from somewhere.
mm.
But sitting in it for me, it feels messy, it feels
Yeah,
grey. I don't know what to do with myself. That's often what I find. I don't know what to do with myself. Like my thoughts can be kind of everywhere. Um, and yeah, I find that I'm not very present as well when I've
mm.
got quite extensive self-doubt. Like it comes through in that way for me.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's quite messy as a
yeah,
subject, and I think
yeah.
everybody's experience of it is also very unique to you.
Yeah. But I think, again, I think you've articulated so well there exactly what it does when you're in that space. It drains your energy in a really unproductive, unhelpful way and can become completely distracting. I think it can be paralyzing. And some of what I think I've felt in those moments is that fear of being paralyzed, not and having all that uncertainty and not knowing what to do and no longer feeling clear about the next step. And I think when I've suffered with it in my career, like the worst of it, and I know I've spoken about it on this podcast before, but was when I had quite crippling self-doubt actually in 2014 during one of my senior leadership roles, and it caused me to question everything I did for days, and that went on for months. And it meant that I moved slower, I moved with less assertion, I eroded my own performance slowly because everything was just took so much effort and energy to do because I lacked so much clarity and I was erratic in my behavior. Like I would make a decision and then change it and then make another decision because I just couldn't feel confident in anything I was doing. Um, And then the fear built after that. The fear just
Yeah.
grew because I became
Yeah.
fearful of everything. And it was only when I just finally managed to take a completely different approach and got external expertise when I employed a coach that they helped me to work through what was going on so that I was able to have much more accurate information, that I could gather the facts, that I could grow an understanding of what was happening. And then that gave me the clarity to take action in the right way to do something about it. Um,
Yeah.
but up to that point, that doubt, which for me, doubt is uncertainty, it's not no longer feeling confident in knowing anything, is true. Um, I think that is the bit that it can be so paralyzing. Because in your experience as a coach, like obviously we're talking about this a lot in terms of our own personal experience, which is completely valid. Everything you've described, I think, I find so relatable, and I'm sure anyone who's listening who can acknowledge they feel self-doubt at times will resonate too. But in your experience as a coach, where do you see self-doubt actually holding people back the most, or really heavily negatively impacting them?
Yeah, I think in a couple of ways. So one is around having been promoted into a more senior role.
Mm,
Um, and I work with mainly kind of senior execs now and kind of C-suite level in my coaching work, and it still crops up there.
mm,
Like, and that's in the I've just got this new
yeah.
hugely senior role where I'm responsible for a lot of delivery, a lot of people, um, and I don't know if I can do it, and I don't know why I've got it. That's
Yeah.
probably the number one area that it comes through in coaching. The
Mm,
second way it can come through is um, holding holding clients back from taking the next step.
mm,
So what I mean for that is going, well, there's this thing I want to do over here. And that might be a new role, for example, within an organization, or it might be externally as well. And actually, I just don't think I can do it. And I've
mm,
got doubt around my abilities to do it. So I'm not even going to apply. Or
mm,
actually, I've got this really great idea about doing this, but I'm not sure. And there's an element of doubt there about how they're going to move forward and create that next step. So that can come through as well. And I think also being in scenarios where people have got like ideas and solutions and answers that to me externally as a coach sound like brilliant and really like rational to either the problem or the challenge they're going to solve, but they somehow pull back on it and they don't advocate for themselves and on their expertise and the value that they can bring because there's doubt there about how
mm,
that might be perceived or how that might be received by people,
mm,
or actually that there's there won't be people won't be up for it or whatever it is. So I'd say they're the three kind of ways that I think the most frequent ways that it plays out often
mm,
in the work that I do with clients. What
mm.
about you?
Yeah, very similar, to be honest. I think it's very similar situations. And I think what I was thinking through there then was, well, what's the key theme that's coming out? And I think there's two for me. There's the putting ourselves in spaces that are challenging us, where we're doing things possibly for the first time, or where we're stretching ourselves, or we're testing out our capabilities, where we're growing new skills. And I think that starts playing into it. It's like the unknown is what we're operating in. And so we feel uncomfortable, and that discomfort is triggering that question as to, well, can I actually do this then? Am I uncomfortable? And I think this is what's interesting about this. I think it's confusing at times, the feelings and what it's actually telling us. And I think we can be very quick to simplify our feelings
Yeah.
in an attempt to move on from them very quickly, or to just get rid of them. But actually, I think in those spaces where we feel uncomfortable, that's where we've got the most to learn, and that will really help us the most. And it's leaning into it and sitting with that discomfort. And that's why I always say to my coaching clients, even in a session, I'm like, if we ever encounter a moment in the session where you feel uncomfortable, I would encourage you to stay there because it's telling you something you need to know. Um, and I think it's acknowledging that actually I'm feeling uncomfortable because I'm in a space where I am new, where this is unknown to me. I'm not quite sure how this is going to play out because I've not done it before. But rather than be afraid, actually see it as actually this is a chance for me to learn something new. This is a chance for me to realize a part of myself that I might not be familiar with yet. This is a chance for me to
Yeah,
expand my skill set, increase my
yeah,
capability. So, yes, that may be frightening, but it's temporary because actually look at what possible the rewards could be on the other side of getting through this. Um, and then I think the other part is that judgment piece. And I do think how others react towards us, for some of us, can be really strong influences on our self-doubt.
yeah,
And
$100%.
if we're quite externally referenced, and I'm someone who definitely is, so I can sort of relate to this. Um, if we're not careful, and I mentioned this in the introduction, we talked a lot about giving power away. You give power to the wrong people and you give power to the wrong place. Actually, a mantra that I've been repeating to myself the last few months actually is, which is really important to me. So I'm going to share it here for anyone who else who this might be useful for, useful to,
Oh,
is
yeah, please do.
other people's reactions and behavior towards me don't define me or take away my worth.
Mm,
Because I know that I'm someone who, at times, it depends who it is and what the circumstances are, but I can give too much value and power and validity to what others think of me. And I mean, take it, when I say give it, I mean literally give it all away and take it away from myself and what I know to be true.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's trying to get the balance right with that, which is, yes, caring about what other people think about you isn't a bad thing. And seeking feedback from others is never a bad thing, in my opinion. But be careful where you place the worth of it, like the value of it. Like, it's not about giving it all away to somebody else, it's about sharing it with them. Like, you're still able to hold some back for yourself. Because you know what's to be true, you know what your intention is. So I think never forget that when you're taking action if you're having doubt. But I think that's how I'd sort of summarize what I was hearing there, and where I definitely think the strongest themes are in the coaching I do when it comes to self-doubt.
yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like certainly at a more senior level, and you just kind of prompted something for me with what you said. Often when you're in those types of roles, you're all about the answers. You're
Mm,
all about the next step. You're all about operationally, what you're going to do to solve, you know, the challenge or the problem, how you're going to move things forward, how you're going to get stuff done, how you're going to make profit, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. Like
mm,
there's lots of like metrics and measures within those roles. But it's often about solution and finding what like the next, step is. And I think sometimes when you have or are experiencing a period of kind of high self-doubt, and I put myself in this sometimes, often what I need actually, or some of what my clients need, is they just need a moment to just take a second and organize their thoughts to then
mm.
get clear on what that
Yeah,
next step is for
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And then that's when the feeling then kind of goes alongside that naturally and you move through it rather than being like, okay, this is where I'm now. I need to move through it. How do I do that?
Mm,
It
mm,
actually, that's kind of like the outcome. If you are in a point where you enjoy a structure to it or a process to it, yeah, actually, it's about thinking, okay, well, the structure is I just need to take a minute and talk to somebody about this, whether that is a coach or whether that is a colleague or a partner or whoever it
mm,
might
mm,
be. And actually, through doing that and looking at it and exploring why you're feeling or what's triggering that for you, you're likely to get to what the next step is to then move yourself through.
mm,
And yeah, I think often, especially when, work's busy, there's lots of pressures, especially in the work, now more than ever, lots and lots of different multifaceted pressures that come to us, whether you're a business owner, or you're, working in an organization or whatever level. it's so complex now
Yeah.
and just multi-leveled.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's no wonder that self-doubt can, frequently crop up if
Mm,
that is the case.
mhm. Do you think there are any benefits to really sitting with that feeling of self-doubt? I feel like we've spoken about it a little bit,
Yeah,
but let's
yeah.
talk about it a bit more about like that sitting with the feeling of it.
Good question. Um, yeah, I think there are actually. Certainly in my experience. So one is, I think you've got that feeling for a reason. Like I always think of you, by the way, when I say this, because I feel like you say you are a big, like your feelings are data.
Yeah.
They're like data points. Um, so thinking about actually, I'm feeling this self-doubt for a reason. Okay, why is that? Like, is
Mm,
that because I got put in a situation that in some ways triggered a bit of a limiting belief I had about myself? Or
mm,
because somebody said something to me that took me back to a time where I've experienced that in the past? Or was it that the words and language that somebody used, was incredibly pointed around my capabilities and that I, was enough in that moment, whatever it might be. But there is a reason why you've got to that point of self-doubt. And I think that is a good prompt
mm,
to,
mm,
when the time is right, and I'll come back to that in a second, when the time is right to explore and review that for yourself, because it might tell you some stuff that
mm,
you might need to kind of build into your development, your personal and professional development, or it might tell you some stuff around actually, okay, I need to think about my response or my reaction to that particular thing and think about what does that mean? What could I have done differently? Is there anything I could have done differently, etc., etc. So
mm,
yes, I think it can provide a moment of learning, an opportunity for learning. But I don't think, for me personally anyway, that can be in the moment.
mm,
I find that too challenging. Like I can't get there. That's too high reach for me. When I am in that period of doubt, I am in it and it feels, like I said before, like messy and kind of foggy
mm,
and like thick, if you know what I mean, in terms of experience and like trying to navigate and crawl my way in a sense like out of it and up over the top. Once I'm up and over the top of it and feeling a bit more like I'm through, that's when I can personally then take, oh
mm,
right, okay, what happened there then?
mm,
And ask myself that question to take the learning opportunity from
mm,
it. I can't do that when I'm in the thick of it. That's for
mm.
sure. So
Yeah,
I think that can be the benefit of it. And also, I think also thinking about, well, if I'm doubting something here now for this reason, like, is this right for me? I think that like a bit like a danger detector,
yeah,
for want
yeah,
of a better description.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, is this actually right for
Mm.
me? Or, can I, add value or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think they're the two main benefits that it can provide us.
Yeah, and I think that latter one is what I think is where my head went with this question, because I think it's checking in with us as to whether is this right for me? Is this what I want to be doing? Is
Yeah.
this the right time? It's just using it as an opportunity to pause and just check in with ourselves. Because I think a lot of these thoughts we have, even those that feel really difficult, painful, quite negative, they're all coming from a place of trying to protect us. It's
Yeah.
just they can often, when left unchecked and unmanaged, escalate into something a lot more sinister and unhelpful. And
Yeah.
they're no longer protective. They're actually like controlling and suffocating. And that's that, I think, feeling of being held back and how we hold ourselves back. We get in our own way. Um, but I think sitting with the feeling and exploring it is really important and understanding what is this telling me? And do I agree with what it's telling me? Because we can always challenge it. Like it's
Yeah.
not gospel. I know that my self-doubt is left unchecked is totally wild. I mean, like it's totally unhelpful, totally unrealistic, very dramatic, totally exaggerates everything. Um, I don't think I've ever had self-doubt that actually I felt was ever valid, to be quite honest. Unless it's to do with some sort of like physical nature of an activity. When I'm like, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, yes, because you can't. So let's not go there. Um, but anything professional, it's always been nonsense, really. Um, so I think it's listen to what your um, feelings are telling you, but always remember you can challenge them, that they're not
Yeah,
100% right. They may have been right at one stage, but we're growing all the time. And I think sometimes what we're not very good at is updating them with us. Like
yeah,
we're growing, we're developing all the time. Those of us who are leaning into challenges and new opportunities fairly consistently, we're definitely growing then on a faster trajectory. But I think at times our feelings and emotions haven't grown and developed as quick. So they're lagging behind, and that's where the self-doubt is more deep-rooted. It's like I've not updated myself on your current circumstances. I'm behind. So actually what I'm telling you needs a bit of a reboot. We need to update
yeah,
the software package because
absolutely.
it's lagging
And
behind.
we need to literally do a system reset
Yeah, we
here.
need to do a system reset.
Because I
Um,
think as well, just from that point, that kind of prompted something for me around we can often be too narrow and refined as well in
yeah.
that involvement. Well, I did it, I tried it once and it didn't and
Yeah.
it didn't quite work out, or it didn't work out the way I wanted, and so I've doubt myself now, or
Yeah, I'm not able to
whatever.
do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find that like when I experience that in the sense when I hear that, whether that's with a friend or in a coaching session with a client or in any other kind of context, I can find like that can be the most frustrating thing to hear because you're like, yeah, but that was then, this is now,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
Time's moved on. You've experienced more. You've tried more things. You've
yeah,
learnt more. Yeah, you need to, like you said, we need to do a system reset because we need to update your software package because your current data isn't fully accurate at all. So, what are your top tips for taking your power back when self-doubt creeps in?
so I think the kind of number one thing has to be some kind of way of acknowledging when you're there, um, and kind of in a way calling it for yourself. Because I can do this sometimes where I probably am having a moment or a burst of kind of self-doubt, and it can take me sometimes a while to realize that's where I'm at. And then once I've kind of done that, that kind of makes me in a way feel bit relieved
Mm,
that that's where I am. And I think it's just about like, because life's busy, isn't it? You can carry on
mm,
and you can push those feelings down and push thinking, oh, I feel a bit off today, or I don't quite feel as energized as I once was, or I'm,
mm,
not as optimistic as I was, or, doubting myself. And, it can be overt, but it can also not be as well. And I
yeah,
think just building your awareness of where you're at right now and acknowledging it if that is where you are at the moment. That's
yeah,
my first top tip because I think there's huge power for yourself and taking that power back in being really clear and acknowledging where you're at right now.
mm, mm,
That's my first top tip. Um, the second piece, I think, is around um the facts.
mm,
So, like, fact checking this doubt. Um, and again, I think you have to think about when the timing is right for you because every situation will be different, every person will be different. I know that I'm better at doing that once I've kind of like got over the bulk of it, as I've mentioned previously, but you might be able to do that a bit more in the moment than me. But yeah, I think fact checking, is this actually the truth? Is this real? What have I got facts here to prove or disprove where these feelings are coming from? And actually, where are they coming from? Is it because I spoke to somebody who made me feel a certain way and took me back to a place where I was doubting myself in the past?
mm.
Or is it actually right here, right now? Yeah. So I think kind of again, once you acknowledge where you're at, you then build second step is to build your awareness and fact check whether that is accurate. or not. So that's my kind of second top tip. And I think finally, from my perspective, is just kind of, and we've not talked about this, but I'm going to throw it in at this point, is really upping your self-love and self-compassion at this point.
Mm.
Um, we were actually just talking before we recorded this episode. We did an episode last summer, didn't we, on personal energy and
Yeah.
topping up the four personal energies that we talked about in that episode. Um, and there are ways of which you can do that. And I think the same kind of applies here in the sense of, if you are really doubting yourself, and that can feel really heavy, that can feel really horrible as a feeling, like I've mentioned, for me, it takes me away from the present moment when I'm in a big self-doubt.
Mm.
Um, that's not nice to be in and navigate. And actually, I think giving myself some self-love, some self-compassion can be a way of me working through that. So to bring that to life, that might be actually, do you know what? I'm going to down tools right now and I'm going to go and walk the dog and
Yeah.
listen to my favorite podcast, or which is the coaching cast, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
or I'm actually going to journal of
Mm.
where I'm feeling right now. So just to try and make sense and get it out of my head of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Or actually, I'm going to invest some time and I'm going to watch some comedy that's going to make me laugh, and help me just feel a bit better with where I am. So, what that looks like for each and every one of us will be very different. But actually, I think that act of something that is, giving you some love back and nourishes you when you're feeling a bit rubbish and a bit doubtful about
Mhm.
yourself is very powerful. And it's something that I am still working on, I think, as a habit when I'm in it. Because again, I cannot be great at, at catching that and thinking, I need to go and do that now. And
Yeah.
just do and have a bit of self-love and care.
Yeah. I love that. Great tip, Suze. I think I would build on that by adding, if this is an area that you know is real, very real for you, very current, and it's reoccurring, I think what I would add to this is build your own success tracker. I think, we're talking a lot about self-doubt. The opposite to that is self-belief. And I think it's about
Yes.
feeding your self-belief. So I think create your own success tracker that you can create and then continue to add to. So when you're in those moments of doubtfulness where you don't think you can, your success tracker can remind you, fill the gap in your data, give you the facts and demonstrate to you how successful you are and how you can keep being successful. You can keep building on it. And I think the last thing which I would add to that is identify someone else who can be your external reference and support you to work through your thoughts and your thinking, and whether that's a cheerleader in your circle, professional or otherwise, or a mentor or a coach, who you can just have someone there to give you the space to hold your thoughts and explore them and give you different perspective, and help with that piece that Susie was referring to there with the journaling and just getting your own out of your own head for a bit, um, and enabling you to connect with that more positive, productive, pragmatic and real side of your thoughts. So don't worry if you can't remember all of those. We've got quite a lot this episode, all valid because it's a chunky topic, but we will share them at the end. So you can capture them then, and they will also be on our Instagram page when this episode is released, where all of our top tips are always stored. So you can go and collect them whenever you feel like you need to catch up. Cool.
Right, CBBS. It's now time for Bullshit Bingo, where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace, which, quite frankly, make us cringe. Our Bullshit Bingo for today's episode came from one of you, our CBB, so thank you so much for that. And it is, are we ready? Drum roll, please. It is green shoots. Now, I'm gonna put my hand out. I've used this recently, green
Oh, you've
shoots.
used it recently. Well, it is spring. So, I mean, it feels very
Yep,
apt for the time of year in the UK. It's spring. How
true.
have we not used this before? Have we not had this on the podcast before?
No,
Amazing.
no.
Gosh.
This is, I don't think so anyway.
Shocking. Shocking that this is not featured on before. This is such a good one. It's so typical as well. Everyone loves to talk about green shoots.
Some green shoots. Oh, I love it. Yeah, I think it's a good one. I
It
use
is
this
a
a
good
lot.
one. It is a good one. But well, yeah, I mean, you said you used it recently.
Yeah, I did.
Brilliant. Talking
I
about the
did.
green sheets. I haven't used it for ages. That's not good for me, probably. I haven't had any green sheets. But yeah, this is a classic. God, I feel like this I used to use this all of the time. I think it was always used all the time in every work environment I've ever been in. I think we've used this.
Well, I use this a lot in the context of because I do a lot of sales work,
Mm,
don't I? Like sales
yeah,
consultancy and
yeah,
support. So we talk about green shoots in terms of the pipeline.
yeah. I love it.
Some
I
green
mean,
shoots
I
there.
feel like you've used another one there. Like, I know it's not bullshit bingo pipeline, but it feels a little bit like it could be. And I've definitely had some social interactions in the last couple of months where I've been referring, when people have asked me about my business and how things are
Yeah.
going, I've been making reference to my pipeline, and the amount of blank faces that I've encountered has made me realize that I'm using work language in a social setting with people who don't work in the same industry or in the same way that I do. And me talking constantly about this pipeline, I can tell I've lost them, like the glazed over expression. So
Well, I love it
I've been trying to
because
find another way to describe what I mean, but I can't. And like, I haven't gone into funnels. I mean, it hasn't got that bad. Like, if I'd stepped into the world of sales funnels, I definitely would have lost them, but I've stayed away from the funnel.
that's hilarious. Because also knowing you as I do, I know that like if you can see that that hasn't landed with someone, you're going to then explain it again, but in a different way. But you're not going to just let it go and be like, oh, that didn't land. I'll just let that go and we'll move on. You're going to keep going, but just explain it different. And I because I know that about you. I'm literally laughing because I can visualize you
Oh
doing that
God, it's so
conversation.
embarrassing. I love it when people know you so well that they call you out on your stuff and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, it's like you were there. It was like you were the fly on the wall. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, I think I just kept repeating the word pipeline. So I think it was just a lot
like
more.
Tourette's.
I think it was just a lot more pipeline, to be honest.
Well,
Oh,
if you want to
God.
fulfill our bullshit bingo pipeline, with more bullshit bingos, you've only got 2 episodes left to do that.
Oh, you
Because
got people.
if you missed our news in last month's episode, we are pausing the podcast at episode 100, which is in a couple of months. So we need more than ever your bullshit bingo phrases. Drop us a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn when and where you hear those corporate phrases that, quite frankly, make you and us probably cringe. We need to fill the pipeline.
We are coming to the end of today's episode where we've been discussing the topic of self-doubt. Our top tips and recommendations from today's episode are as follows, and there are a few, so brace yourself, get your pen and pad out. You're
Oh
going to need it.
gosh.
Number one, take a pause and stop when you notice feelings of self-doubt and acknowledge what those feelings are. So this is all about, let's not brush it aside, let's not dismiss it. It'll only remain there, it's only likely to grow. Actually, give it some focus and give yourself some time to really lean into this and understand what's going on. Number two leads on from that. That's all about really gathering what those feelings or thoughts of self-doubt actually are and conducting your own fact-checking exercise. So very often those feelings have escalated, those thoughts have escalated, and they've become disconnected from the full truth. So it's about really ensuring that you understand what you're thinking, where it comes from, and you can challenge yourself as to whether or not that's accurate. More often than not, it's not. Number three, treat yourself with compassion and kindness. And Suzy offered a great suggestion, which is when you're in those moments where you're feeling quite heavy with self-doubt, take a break. Take yourself away from whatever you're doing, whatever's potentially triggering you. Go for a walk, listen to a podcast, do something you enjoy, whatever that just breaks that state for you and gives you a chance to have a bit of a rest and get a bit of a different perspective, to be able to return to whatever's going on with renewed energy and from a place of more strength, I would say. Number four, if you're feeling like you are repeatedly in a cycle of self-doubt, build yourself your own success tracker. So this is a bit linking to that fact-checking exercise in point two, but build yourself a success tracker that actually depicts all the successes you've ever had. You can go as far back as you like, by the way, on this one. There's no right or wrong. It's literally giving yourself a valid record of all the great things you've ever done or achieved or experienced, which enforce your self-belief and therefore challenge your self-doubt. So that actually proves to you what you're able to do and what you can do and what you have done and everything you've overcome before. Because if you've done it before, you'll be able to do it again. The number five is find yourself a cheerleader. So this could be a colleague, a really close friend, it could be a family member, but it's got to be someone you trust. It could equally be someone in a professional capacity. You could organise yourself a mentor or engage with a coach, but someone who can help you really work through your feelings and thoughts and get a completely different perspective on those in a safe space. So there are 5 tips. One thing I would add to this, more as a comment than anything else, just as a reminder, is that growth occurs in the challenging, uncomfortable spaces. That is where we grow. Growth doesn't happen in the comfortable, safe spaces. So if you are someone who is ambitious, who is driven, not even those types of descriptive words, you just want to achieve something, just remind yourself of that. When you're feeling uncomfortable, just check in and think, am I feeling uncomfortable because actually I'm growing and I'm learning? Because that's the only places where these things happen. That's where you really are able to fulfill your true potential. Some self-coaching questions to ask yourself are, what evidence do I have that supports the belief I'm not good enough? Number 2, if someone I cared about felt this way, what would I say to them? And how can I say that to myself? Number 3, what am I afraid might happen if I believed I was good enough? And number 4 is, what could you do differently? Don't worry if you can't remember these, both the coaching questions or the top tips. Both will be on our Instagram page at the Coaching Cast this week.
So, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you look up our episode from February 2022. Wow. It's entitled Your Superpower at Work is You. It's season 4, episode 5. It has some similar themes and builds of what we've talked about today. So, one to definitely look up, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. We will also have another brand new podcast episode for you too next month in early June. Finally, from me anyway, CVBs, look, we know you're busy, but it would mean the world to us if you could take a minute just to rate, review, and subscribe to the Coaching Cast wherever you listen. It takes seconds and it's free to do, or even just tell one person in your life who you think this podcast might help. Pass it on, send them a link or a specific episode. It will help the podcast grow and will be much appreciative. So, yeah. Do it.
Share it, please. So as many of you now will know, if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, we like to end each episode with our personal song recommendation, giving you energy and motivation as you launch into the next part of your working day. Now, it's my choice this week, and really strangely, I was traveling home in the car yesterday afternoon thinking about this episode and the topic of self-belief, and on my Spotify playlist came a song by Shaznay Lewis of All Saints fame.
Yes.
Anyone who loved and grew up in the 90s and noughties, featuring one of my heroes, Self-Esteem, and the song is called Pick You Up, and it starts with Self-Esteem talking, and she says, "Who's not believing in yourself for?" Fundamentally, life is far too short not to. So I just thought, what a cracking song. It's a tune, by the way, as well, but so apt for this episode. So I would encourage you all to go and check it out. Pick You Up is what it's called.
I'm going to go and do that now.
Yeah, it's really good. So thank you so much, as always, guys, for being here with us. We really appreciate it. We will be back next month with a new episode. So in the meantime, just remember, you've got